One of the biggest challenges following a breakup with a narcissist for the target is to accept that they can make it on their own without being in a relationship with the narcissist, and also learning how to do that. Usually, after someone's been with a narcissist for some time, their confidence would be at an all-time low. Their clarity of mind, of thinking, would be at an all-time low. Their morale would be at an all-time low. Their sense of self-esteem and self-worth would also be at an all-time low. And at the same time, they'd be just engulfed in this sea of confusion and just trying to work out what happened, questioning your own sanity. In the midst of all that, it can be very difficult for the target who left the narcissist to be able to move on with their life, because they no longer have the narcissist around to provide them with guidance, even though the guidance and support, between quotations, support that the narcissist provides, even though it's not good. Being with a narcissist, in a way, does provide an agenda for people to just keep themselves going. So there is some kind of structure there, even though it's a toxic one. But once you remove that, the target no longer has that sense of structure. So when they're not with the narcissist anymore, they no longer have that sense of structure. And also, the other point to consider is that people who were previously friends or close family of the target, they often don't really understand what the target went through. It's not like the target can easily convey with accuracy how they're feeling, what they went through, because oftentimes words don't quite describe the magnitude of the reality, which is the aftermath of suffering a long period of abuse from a narcissist. It's kind of hard to get that point across to people. But taking that all together, when the target breaks up with a narcissist, they can find themselves just struggling to move on, go about their day-to-day lives. They're so on the one hand, they're so distracted by the narcissist about what happened, the past, and they're still kind of have that connection, that kind of psychic connection to the narcissist. They can't really move on from that. They're very distracted. It's hard to be productive with anything, whether it's housework, your children, your job. It's all very difficult. And also, there's a lot of sadness involved. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of sense of failure. So it can be very difficult for the person to move on and believe that they can make it on their own, at least for some time, until they recollect themselves. The last thing you want to do when you jump out of a narcissistic relationship is to jump into a new relationship. That's a recipe for disaster. So what you really need is recovery time, whether it be months or even years. The individual, it varies between individuals, but the individual does need a lot of recovery time. And throughout that kind of recovery process, throughout that time, the individual, piece by piece, they will recollect themselves. They will work through the sadness, work through the disappointment, work through the sense of failure, shake off that kind of trauma bond, that feeling of addiction towards, that toxic addiction towards the narcissist. As the individual understands what happens and understand that there were a lot of games played to deliberately depress their sense of self-esteem, to increase their insecurities, or make them lose their confidence. As they understand that all that was kind of done deliberately, the individual can then restart to gain those things and have an increased awareness of other people out there in the world who might want to do something similar. So there's a whole kind of process involved, and it cannot be rushed. The person has to accept that it is baby steps towards the recovery, recollecting oneself, to reach the point where the person can function individually again without having the toxic structure which was being in the relationship with the narcissist. So the goal of the person when they leave, in terms of gaining that independence again, should really be about rebuilding everything that the narcissist took from them. And with that, adding to all that, having the awareness of what the whole and narcissistic personality disorder is, that they were affected by that, but by being in relationship with a narcissist, and understanding what had happened to them. So as all that kind of sinks in and the person puts things in a good place and the understanding becomes clear, then they're on their path to, full independence. And then from there, the world becomes the person's oyster again. Whether they want to seek out new relationships, start dreaming big again. It's kind of hard to dream big when you're in the midst of all that confusion, but once you get some clarity and you recover a bit, you can start dreaming really big again. Thinking of having a nice relationship again with somebody, doing things you like, just feeling good about yourself, a sense of freedom, a sense of clarity. All that comes. And with the narcissist outside the picture, the road is laid out there for the person. It's just about pursuing it and regaining that sense of kind of confidence, freedom, and independence.